Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would talk about ground crew skills when it comes to War Thunder. This has been a hot button topic the last week or two, basically because of a few videos talking about how detection works and how the crew skills affects it, which is very true. For some reason, in Ground Realistic specifically, a lot of people have for many years talked about how keen vision does not affect Ground Realistic and is also for arcade, only for arcade for the markers. This has never been true, and it's something that I've had to fight against for many years. So let's talk about it in this video, and also at the same time update kind of like the crew skills area. So therefore it gives you a 2025 look at what you should be focusing on when it comes to crew skills. So first of all, how do you get crew skills? Well, if you have a look here on my Leopard 2A7, I have all of it maxed out right here. But then if you have a look at my Puma VJTF, it isn't maxed out because I haven't got a crew level of 137.5. So the way that you improve your crew skills, you can see here, I can actually add some of my crew XP points to this, and that increases the level of it, right? So how does one get these crew XP points? Well, it's pretty simple. You just kind of play the game. In arcade mode, every 100 RP that you earn in arcade mode, you get access to 3 crew XP points, right? And then in simulator and also realistic, every 100 RP that you earn, you get 1 crew XP point, which is why it's technically easier to grind stuff in arcade when it comes to this, but not really. Because you usually get more RP in ground, and also simulator because you get more per action that you do. These crew XP points can be put into crew skills. You can see here the cost of the new skill level, and that basically improves your skills, meaning eventually you'll get to a level 150, which is the full amount that you can do for ground. For air, it's 75, and for naval, I believe it is 75 as well, depending on what you look at. You can see here the crew level of 61, which is pretty close to what it is. Now, one of the interesting things about crew skills, if you didn't know, is crew skills are shared across the board. So what do I mean by this? So in this crew right here, so my number 2 crew, even though I'm at level 150 on my crew level, the crew XP that I make with this crew will still increase, right? I will still get more crew XP. And what I can do in this second crew once again is if I go over to my naval vehicle, you can see I have a ton of crew XP points, and that is because I've actually grounded out with my ground vehicle. So this means that I can actually increase my naval side of things. I'm guessing it is higher. It must be level 150 once again on this. But I can actually use the crew XP that I ground out in ground to actually increase my naval crew, because this is at a maximum. You can do the same thing with the crews here, and if you want to change quickly, you can just do this. You can see I have 56,000 XP points because I only use these crews for air, but I could actually put these into these, so therefore I can have some pretty good crews if I wanted to ever switch around these things. So even if you're maxed out on one of the types of vehicles, remember you can actually distribute your points in the other ones, and this incentivizes people using crews for multiple things, especially if it is a main crew that you enjoy the use of. So yeah, never forget about that. It also means that in something like air, where you do actually have a much easier time getting RP, just because there's more things to do, and generally you can go after AI, or the battles last a bit longer, or you get more per action. Basically, you can actually use those to grind up a crew and then grind out a ground vehicle with it as well, if you don't want to kind of do it in ground where it takes a little bit longer. So that's kind of a cool little tidbit which you can do. So let's talk about the different variations or variables when it comes to qualification of the crew, right? Because right now, so this crew is at level 150, right? And it says it's maximum. So you'd think this is the highest level you can get your crew. Well, you would be wrong. This is only 50% of the actual crew training. And that's kind of nuts, right? Actually, no, it is technically 50% because in ground you actually have a skill, which is the leadership skill, and that gives you an extra 10% of your crew skills. So all of these other crew skills account for 40% of your crew skills, and then if you max out the leadership, that gives you an extra 10%. So therefore, this vehicle right now, even though it is at level 150 crew, is only at 50% efficiency. That's kind of wild, right? So you have this qualification button here. And if you hit this qualification button, what you do is you get +3 for each of your crew skills. This is the equivalent of 30% of your crew. So this number goes from 5 all the way up to 8. Now, this also does actually cost quite a lot of SL, but if you are playing vehicles quite a lot, if you're playing them a lot at high BRs, then this is something that you really should do because it will help out a lot. This is mainly seen in stuff like air. Air, it's kind of a necessity to get an expert crew just because of the G tolerance and also a bunch of other things. But in ground, it's super useful as well because it makes your reloads much quicker. If you have a manual loader, it means your crew will survive more shots. It will mean that your guys can move around easier, you'll repair quicker, all of these things, which is super useful. So then once you actually get the expert upgrade qualification, it gives you an option to be able to grind out the ace qualification. So what I'll do is I'll show you what that looks like. So it costs 1,120,000 to do that for this. And you can see here, it actually lets me now upgrade to the ace qualification. Now, the ace qualification gives you an extra +2 on all of your crew skills. So by doing the experts, by upgrading to experts and also grinding out the ace, your crew skills go from 5 to 10. They double. So ace and expert qualifications increase or double your crew skills, which is just wild to think about. That's how much of a thing they can influence. Now, the way to get an ace crew, you can either buy it with GE, which is right here, or you can grind it out. You can see here that there are 3 separate tiers to grinding out it. And basically, if you get 1,430,000 RP in this specific vehicle, the Leopard 2A7V, you will get access to the ace qualification for free. Those tiers, the tier 1, 2, and 3, reduce the cost of the ace qualification. So you technically don't have to go all the way to the end in order to get this thing aced, but it's something that might just be worth doing because 1,430,000 RP is an insane amount to get for a vehicle. So that is half of your crew skills, which hopefully people understand. Most of the time for me, I don't actually upgrade my crews just because I generally spade a vehicle. Like I'll fully research it and then I'll move on to the next one, and I want to get more of like an average player's experience. But if you are a person who is looking to play these vehicles quite a lot, you should be experting your crews because it gives you such a large advantage over many people who haven't upgraded their crews. So just take that into account, okay? So that's the kind of breakdown of it. I'll leave a link in the description to the Crew Skills War Thunder wiki. They're pretty good at sharing things. There's a few things that they're a little bit odd about, but generally it's not too bad. So let's talk about the actual crew skills themselves. Obviously, that's quite important. The crew skills are split up into different people when it comes to your machine. So you have the driver, gunner, tank commander, tank loader, and radio operator gunner. Now, the actual crews themselves are set up into averages and then direct effects, okay? So what this basically means is you have certain crew skills which are averaged across the board, so it matters how much each of your quote-unquote crew has in terms of crew skills, and then the other one is basically just talking specifically about that position. So, for example, the tank loader has a weapon reloading skill. This is how fast the loader can load the vehicle. So, for example, on something like a Leopard 2A7V, that does have access to a loader and also a manual loaded system This matters because it affects how much I can actually reload the main gun from the ammo in the back of it, which is the first stage. It also affects how long it takes this ammo here to be able to get to here if you are not firing a shell. So how long does it take the loader to be able to fill the first stage ammo stowage? On another vehicle, so let's say, I don't know, for France, because France has quite a lot of autoloaders, there are a lot of vehicles like, let's say, the AMX 50 TOA 100. This vehicle has a loader, which is right here, but it has an automatic system. It actually has a first stage mechanized ammo rack. So this reload rate is not affected by crew skills because it's an automatic loader. This is something that the way that you can tell nowadays whether it is affected or not, it would just say one number here, which is the 4-second number. If you have a look at other vehicles, such as, once again, the 2A7, you will see an aced amount and then also your standard amount. As long as your vehicle isn't aced, it will show a difference in number, and that shows you that this vehicle is a non-auto-loaded vehicle. Now, an auto-loaded vehicle, the crew skills for loading do technically matter, because it is how long you are going to load that autoloader and how quickly you're going to be able to do that, depending on, of course, the vehicle and also the personnel that's around. But it does at least have a little bit of an effect, just not as much as the manual loaded vehicles, because one of the parts of the autoloader is trying your best to balance out being able to do a lot of damage quickly, but then also being able to reload that autoloader afterwards. With a manually loaded vehicle like this, you are worrying about the first stage load and then also the second stage load, which is a lot longer. This affects a lot of vehicles, but generally it's something where you'll get the hang of it as you go along. So that is an example of a skill which is only for the loader itself. If you have a look at some of the other skills, such as the keen vision skill, and then also field repair skill, and the agility skill, you will see that it will say something in the second sentence or third sentence of it, where it says average skill value of the crew counts. So on these things right here, the crew skill across the board for each of your vehicles for these three crew, or for these three abilities, matters. So if you have, let's say, a really high keen vision on your tank commander, but you don't have any on any of the other ones, then what's going to happen is that's going to dramatically decrease that skill. So what you need to do for these three skills here, these top three skills, is you need to average them across the board. So the driver, you know, if you have enough points, you don't want to pump them all into one person. You want to average them across the board, because it will be cheaper to do that, because these crew levels get more expensive as you go up. So it's easier to get to, let's say, 3 than it is to get to 5, right? That's basically how it goes. So that's what you need to do for these skills, since they're the average ones. All of the other ones, so vitality and also the ones below them, these are all direct skills. So these are only going to affect the specific member that they're talking about. So if you don't have a tank loader, for example, this skill right here is not really going to matter, because, you know, the vitality is about the health of the crew and how it all works and all of that good stuff. So let's go through all of the crew skills themselves, what they do, and what you need to focus on. So first of all, you have keen vision. Keen vision has been one which has been hotly debated recently, because it seems like nobody knew how it worked, even though it's worked the same way for many years and all of that good stuff. So the skills nowadays are actually really good at explaining what they do, which is why I was kind of surprised that there was a lot of wonder on how it works. So this skill affects the crew's visual range in the whole direction and the direction they're looking, as well as the range of detecting air targets. The average skill value of the crew counts. So that is the most important part of it, right? So the whole direction of your vehicle and also the direction you are looking. This is actually something that affects air as well, with stuff like the awareness and also keen vision as well. So basically where you are looking and also what is around you. So what they do in ground is they make it linked to the whole direction. So if your vehicle is at a perpendicular to to another vehicle, it will take a long. You will only be able to see it at a shorter distance instead of it being, pointed towards the vehicle, and you are looking at it in third person. This is very, very important, right? And it's the hull direction, not the turret direction. So keep that into account as we go through. So you have different sets of detection. You have standard detection, and then you have identification, which you can see here. And then also you have aircraft detection. Now, aircraft detection is pretty obvious. It's how long you detect aircraft at. Detection and identification are once again linked to what we talked about before, which is where you are pointed and also where you are looking in terms of the camera. Now, the interesting thing, and something you may have seen while I've been playing a lot, kind of going through and showing you like highlights of things that I do, one of the things that I'll do in a position a lot is I will pop up my binoculars, pop them down, and just keep doing that over and over again, not just to look over areas, but also to hear audio and also at the same time to detect things. Because when using a sight device or binocular glasses, the range increases by 3 and 3 times accordingly. So you get a massive increase in the amount of stuff that you can see if you use your binoculars. So if you're just going along a street, and by the way, this is talking about when vehicles pop in for you. Okay, so you may remember back in the day when people had super low cruise skills, or some videos where vehicles would just pop in out of nowhere on maps. That's because people had really low keen vision skills, because people were told to not put any points into this if you played realistic, because it doesn't matter. But guess what? It does, and it has done forever. Just people had a massive misunderstanding about it. So what you need to do while going around is, first of all, you need to put points into this. And second of all, what you need to do is you need to start popping into your binoculars, because that will give you audio cues, and that will also give you sight cues so you can see stuff. Because if you can't see the enemy, you also can't hear them, which is one of the most important things in War Thunder. And I know there's a lot of controversy around it and whether it should work like that, but it does. Because if you could hear them, then it would be very easy to set up for them, even if you can't see them. So yeah, line of sight detection and also line of sight identification is usually the ones you want to focus on, and you just need to make sure that your hull is looking at them. But at the same time, the 3 times thing is nuts on the binoculars, which is really cool. There's also modifications that affect this. If you have a look at a lot of the modifications for light vehicles, you will find an improved optics modification. This increases the cruise visual range by 30%. So if you have this modification, it actually improves your general keen vision, which is really useful, especially since when it comes to light vehicles, they scout, and then when you can scout, you can also use the airstrike modification if you get enough points to get into planes and then dominate from the air. That's, one of the things that you can do. So don't overlook this skill, because it's super useful, not just from visual detection, but also from audio detection, which is one of those which is important. The other thing I do want to mention about this is something that may not be as known about the skill, and I've seen this a lot. People think that this means that you're scouted. So if you have a look over here in this corner, you have not just... I'll just turn off the audio for a second. So over here, if you have a look at these 3, these are engine, gun, then you have turret and tracks. If any of these get damaged, it tells you in this area. But on the other side, you have a gunner sight, a driver sight, and also you have a binocular sight. Then you also have your first stage ammunition, which is here too. So if I fire off a round and then I load a round, that will go down to 14, right? So if you get if your gunner gets hit, which is this one right here, then this will turn red, and it will go into a knocked where somebody has to actually replace them, right? Same with the driver. If they get yellowed or orange or whatever, that's what happens in this area. A lot of people don't see this one and don't know what it means. And what I've seen it said a lot of the time is this is here to tell you if you've been scouted, which is not true and never has been true once again. I don't know where that idea came from, but it is false. What happens with this skill or this right here is if one of your crew members get knocked, it tells you the percentage loss of that crew member based on, the visual range that you've lost from the crew skills. So let's say your commander gets knocked out, you will actually see a percentage of this circle disappear because technically the percentage of your keen vision has disappeared too. So it gives you an indicator on how much you can actually see compared to what you could see before. And that is obviously a key piece of information, but it's something that for some reason is just not known, but that's how that works, okay? So just to let you know, that's how that is set up down there. It's not linked to being scouted. It's not linked to scouting. It is straight up just linked to what percentage you are out of your 100% keen vision skill. Now, field repair is pretty obvious. The more points you put into field repair, the quicker it is to repair. Different pieces take longer to repair, so it's quite important to be able to sort this one out. This is another skill that is averaged across the board. You can see that the base is 40 seconds, and you can get it down to 20 seconds, but this is the maximum possible time to repair the tank. So this is the maximum it can kind of set up for, what you're doing. Now, the issue with this is, once again, because it's averaged across the board, it can matter which crew you have still alive and which crew you even started the battle with, how much it actually affects it. So if you have a look at something like, I don't know, the USSR, and you have a look at the field repair there, you actually have a total of 30 seconds, which is there because you have the base, and then you have the other number one skill, and then you have the other one. But if you have a look at the Leopard 2A7, because we've had access to the expert crew, that has reduced it by 6 seconds, which gets it down to 20, which is kind of crazy. But if you upgrade the expert skill on this, the T72A, you can see here, it is now down to 20. So it makes a huge difference if you have expert skills or if you don't, right? And since it's averaged across the board, it's averaged across, the whole crew on the vehicle itself, which is quite good. Agility is an interesting one. So this one also is an average skill, which is kind of surprising, since, it's one of those which is a little bit odd. This is the amount of time it takes for a crew member to be replaced after they get knocked out. So let's say you have a Leopard 2A7V. There is a set of priority in terms of who is allowed to be replaced and who is not. So, for example, on this vehicle, the two key people are the driver and the gunner. Then you have a commander, and then you also have a loader. So if either one of your driver or gunner gets taken out, they are going to be replaced. Now, they could be replaced by the commander or the loader. I can't remember which one it is, but that means that when they replace that person, the agility score matters because it's the amount of time that a crew member will take to be able to get into that position. So therefore, if you lose your driver and it takes less time to be able to replace him, you will be able to get back into the fight quicker and get out of that position where you get shot in. So agility is super useful in that way. Most of the time, though, as you can see with the crew member replenishment, even with an expert crew, it is 8 seconds at top, and in total it's 9 seconds to be able to do it, right? So top would be if you had an aced crew in this setup. That's still something that is, most things are going to out-reload that at this level, so it doesn't matter, right? You're still going to just get shot twice. But at lower levels, it makes a big difference. Vitality is the specific crew member's amount of health. Now, this one is a little bit odd. You can see here right now, the vitality of my Leopard 2A7, each of the crew members is 180%. Now, this is not an averaged crew skill across the board. So this one is just one for each specific crew member. So you just have to make sure that you have these crew members on the vehicle, and then, obviously they will be affected by this. Now, it's a bit weird how this works. You can see that it's all percentage based, right? Now, percentage based is just a little bit odd. There isn't really a ton of stuff to it in terms of like understanding how it worked, but basically the higher vitality, the more chance you have of surviving a shot if it hits you. Now, I've never found it too useful. It's generally not something that's great at the higher echelons. At the lower echelons, where you have rounds which don't pen as much and also don't set up as much, it can actually be pretty useful because, people can just pen things, therefore they yellow your crew or orange your crew. And also now we have a repair setup or a health setup where if a crew member becomes a tomato or becomes red, they can heal to get to orange or even higher, I think, or maybe just orange. So therefore, their crew skills aren't affected. So vitality has definitely become much more useful in that setup, but it's still not great. It still doesn't really do too much. Then you have the actual unique skill of each of the people. So for the driver, you have tank driving, and basically what this is how long it takes you to brake and how long it takes you to shift gears, which is pretty important, right? Then with the gunner, you have the targeting, which is straight up how fast you can target the vehicle. You can see here the turret rotation speed, where even though I have all the modifications, it isn't at full, right? And that's because I do not have an ace crew on my gunner or any of the other crews since it's collective. And once you have this at 100%, you can see here the targeting quality will be at 100 and the targeting speed will be faster. So by experting your crew or putting crew skills into this, it straight up makes your turret quicker and your targeting speed move around. Range finding is all about the error on the range find. Now, I wouldn't worry about this too much since most of the vehicles at this tier have laser rangefinders, but at lower tiers this can be super useful if you are a person who struggles with range finding. But you can see it doesn't actually have a lot of effect on the actual rangefinder. I feel in general this is something that you'll just set up to do over time. Leadership gives 10% to every other crew skill. So as we talked about before, the base crew skill, so if you get everything up to level 150, apart from this, that gives you 40% of your crew skills overall. The leadership gives you an extra 10%. So this skill right here is worth a quarter of everything else in it. So everything else is worth 75%. All of these other things, the tank commander's leadership skill is worth 25% of all skills. Isn't that wild? And then obviously expert is worth the 30%, ace is worth the extra 20%, but just the base skills, if you broke them down into 100%, the leadership skill is worth 25% overall. So this is a very important skill to actually have. Then for tank loader, you obviously have weapon reloading. This is, what we talked about before with the first stage ammo and also the main reloading. For the radio operator, you have the artillery targeting accuracy, the strike calling time, and the radio communication. So these two are kind of useful. It's obviously how long it takes a artillery strike to come in and the targeting accuracy of said artillery strike. Sometimes you actually don't want it to be that accurate, but generally, these can be quite useful things to be able to continue to artillery strike the enemy and do them with great accuracy. I wouldn't say they're high up on the setup that you need. And then radio communication, this one is super useful. So radio communication is the skill that affects the range at which the enemy players are detected by the allied teams that are displayed. So what this basically means is if an action happens on another area of the map, such as an enemy gets shot by your ally, or if an enemy gets seen by an ally and, machine gunned or something like that, this is how much distance on the map that you can see that person. So you can actually make more choices based on what you see. Now, this is not affected by pings. This is not affected by scouts or anything like that. Like, you'll see those no matter what, but this is the specific actions when it comes to like getting shot or, you know, moving around that you will hear and that you will see as well. So this one is pretty useful, especially at the lower tiers where the maps are a little bit smaller, so you can kind of work out what's going on around you and what your team is doing. Now, logistical services. This one is kind of interesting, but not really that useful. If you have premium account, don't worry about this. It doesn't matter. If you don't have premium account, then it might be worth mattering about this. Now, there's this thing down here, which is called the automatic repair of vehicles after a battle. If you turn this off, what this basically means is when you have a vehicle which has been played and it has been damaged or destroyed, you will have to repair it, right? And it will be red. Now, what will happen is over time, that vehicle will get cheaper to repair. So if you don't have premium, what you can do is you can, let's say, play a lineup, and then let's say you finish for the day and you go to bed or you go to work or do whatever. When you come back and then you repair those vehicles will be cheaper to repair than they were if you just repaired them straight away before you left. This is technically the same as premium, but with premium now, the way that it works is you don't ever lose a sell from battles. You can see here, insurance compensation of expenses of automatic repair of vehicles, an automatic purchase of ammo, and crew replenishment in case of negative battle results up to 0 results of Silver Lions. So you don't lose any SL ever if you go negative in a battle, so you don't have to worry about repairs if you don't do very well. But if you don't have premium account, then you do have to worry about repairs. So that is something that, you know, exists. Your repairs get cheaper over time the longer that you leave them. Now, the repair speed and the repair rank affect how effective this reduction in repair cost is. So repair rank, basically you have to match up the repair rank with the vehicle that you are trying to repair. If it doesn't match, so you can see here, the total is 8 rank and the top is 8 rank. So this means it will affect all of the vehicles I have in the tech tree, which is great if I put them into this crew. But if it doesn't match this, then it kind of sucks because it won't affect it at all, or it'll have a reduced effect, right? But I'm pretty sure it just won't affect it at all. The repair speed is how much it affects it. So you can see here, in-hangar repair time is 13 days, 3 hours, 57 minutes. The base is 28 days. So we've actually reduced it by half. And if you get the ace crew, it's 9 days, which is pretty nuts. And you can see here, reduces repair time by up to 3 times when fully researched. Now, remember, you don't want to focus on that 13-day number. What you want to focus on is the ratio of how much it's going to decrease over time. So even if, let's say, you have a vehicle like the Leopard 2A7, which has a max repair cost of nearly 7,000, if you die in the vehicle and get absolutely exploded, and let's say you have to pay 6,500, if you, as I said, go for food or go to the bathroom, go to work, go to school, do whatever, and then come back and then repair it, it will be cheaper because of this repair speed. And that is super useful. This is also something that at lower ranks is a huge thing. So if you have a look at, let's say, the Panzer 3J, this vehicle in logistical services, you can see here in the in-hangar repair time is 29 minutes. And that's without an expert crew, without an ace crew, so just with the crew skills themselves. This means that if you leave it for, let's say, I don't know, 20 minutes or 15 minutes if you go and do something, and then come back, your repair cost will be halved, which is huge. It means that you can save a lot of SL and generally is pretty good. The only problem with it is obviously you have to wait. But if you don't want to wait, you can just repair it and then go ahead and play. So it's just a way of being able to save SL if you want to. It's not something that's required to do. So that's all of the basic crew skills. There's nothing really else to it. If you want my kind of priority crew skills to go for. Obviously, the targeting one is very important. The tank driving one is super important because you don't want your tank driver not like lurching forward or going backwards in a weird way, which is basically what happens if this crew skill is low. Leadership is super important. Weaponry loading, especially at the lower tiers, is really important. Radio communication is incredibly important. So those are like the kind of key skills that I would focus on. In terms of the other ones, basically field repair and keen vision and agility, you should split the cost between them. Vitality, I don't think is that useful. So the bottom skills are the most useful, then splitting points between these three, and don't worry too much about vitality since it doesn't give you as much as the other ones. I would definitely focus though on field repair and also keen vision, just because of the simple fact that keen vision, if you're not used to using your binos, and by the way, as I said, you really should. Like, I'll show you what I mean. Like, if you use your binos, keen vision becomes so useful compared to everything. If you're just wandering around and you just do this every so often, then you'll hear so much more stuff, and you'll be able to hear what's going on, and then kind of moving from there, right? Like, that's all you got to do. Just like little movements like this, and then just looking to the side, doing some binos, and then just click it on a key which is close to you. You can also use the commander sight if you want to, or the gunner sight if you really want to, but the binocular sight means that you don't lose audio, and also it gives you a higher view of the battlefield. Because if you go into gunner sight, or if you go into commander sight, you lose audio cues, whereas binos you don't, and also you can see way further. So that is something that really should be worked on. So yeah. Repair is obviously super important because of the fact that, once you get hit, you have to get out of dodge. And then agility can be important as well. It's just not going to be important at the higher echelons, more at the lower echelons, because people have longer reloads. So that's what I would focus on in general. And if you do have any additional questions, please let me know. I've tried to be as thorough as possible, but you never know at the end of the day. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.